Somebody else who potentially has knifed the Prime Minister in the front is Conservative MP Andrew Murrison, who quit as a trade envoy yesterday with There's No High. Why did you quit?
Well, it's been a long burn for me, Kay. I've been deeply unhappy for some considerable time. I suppose the straw that broke the camel's back yesterday was the letter written by Lord MacDonald, who was the senior civil servant at the Foreign Office when I was there, to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, which I think laid bare the relationship that the Prime Minister has with the truth, which is something we'd known for some while. But yesterday, I think, actually just made it explicit.
It basically said that the Prime Minister was lying.
Correct, that's what it said.
OK. We've known that the Prime Minister has a loose affinity with the truth on more than one occasion previously, so why now?
Well, it's been a long burn. I suppose you could argue that many of us perhaps should have gone before now. But changing Prime Minister is a significant thing. It's not something we do lightly. And the Prime Minister has achieved a lot, I think, in his time of office, which is in anticipation of which is why we supported him in the first place. But to be honest, enough is enough, which is why I resigned yesterday, and two very senior cabinet ministers, I imagine, probably decided that they had had enough too.
In your opinion, what has he achieved during his tenure?
Well, I supported him because, if you recall, in 2019, we had to deal with Brexit. It was acting like a sheet anchor on our politics and on our country. And it seemed to me that Boris was the only personality that could drive that through, and he has done so.
Has he? Is it fixed?
I think it probably is, as an ex-Northern Ireland minister and chairman of the Northern Ireland Select Committee. And, of course, Northern Ireland is the main sticking point in this and always was going to be.
I was going to say Northern Ireland might say that it's not yet fixed.
Well, Northern Ireland may well say that, and I fully understand that position. But the fact is, I think, for the most part, Brexit has been done, it's been achieved, but we have to deal with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Clearly, that's unfinished business.
OK. Did you vote against him during the recent vote of no confidence?
I did.
Why didn't you leave then?
It's a very good question. I could quite happily have done so. I'm an arch loyalist. That's my instinct all the time. And I certainly support the government. I support what the government is trying to do. And I think it is a time for unity for my party. I don't think that unity is going to be possible under Boris Johnson, which is why I've come to the conclusion that I have.
What do you want the 1922 committee to do?
Well, there are two ways of moving forward, aren't there? In the immediate future, more resignations, ministerial resignations, I think might force the issue. That'd be the quickest way of dealing with it. If that doesn't work, then the backbenchers are going to have another go. 148 is a big number. It wasn't enough, but I think a rule change is appropriate. Indeed, I think we're obliged to consider a rule change.
OK. Not at the moment, because that isn't going to happen unless they change the rules for the rule change. And that's what Boris Johnson has been criticised for many times in the past, changing the rules when it doesn't suit him.
Look, this is the 1922 rules are of a different order. We have to have a mechanism, a safety mechanism, for dealing with a Prime Minister who is clearly not fit for purpose. I think we have a duty to change the rules because we can't leave this until June next year.
What can he do to convince you otherwise?
He can't, and I've made that very clear in my letter to him, and indeed he's made it clear himself in that he said last week he can't change, he's not going to change.
Do you not feel that you had a responsibility as trade envoy to continue on with the work that you were doing, holding the UK in a good light to, I think it was Morocco, wasn't it?
Yeah, Morocco is very important to me. I've got a long-standing relationship with Morocco, and certainly my work there is not done. I will continue it by other means. You can be sure of that. But it wasn't a decision I took lightly, because being a trade envoy is a fairly junior position, but it was important to me, and I really wanted to keep it because I think we're making progress there. But sometimes in politics, you've got to take a stand. I think your integrity depends upon it, which is why I acted as I did.
So tell me about that process from when you first thought, I'm not sure about this Prime Minister, to actually penning the letter.
Well, as I said to you, it's been a long burn for me, and it's accumulation of a whole load of things. It's not Partygate, important though Partygate is, and desperately awful though it was. It simply wasn't just that. It's a whole raft of issues around the Prime Minister's character, his relationship.
Yeah, I was thinking about your emotion, how you were feeling.
Oh, deeply gutted. I mean, really gutted to do that. I'm not a quitter. I'm an arch loyalist. If you look at my 20-year record as a Member of Parliament, I've always been loyal. So this is completely contrary to my character, which is why it's so difficult for me.
Nazim Zahawi on the programme this morning, the new Chancellor, saying he's completely confident that the Prime Minister has integrity.
OK, well, I think everybody's got to speak for themselves. I respect Nadeem very much indeed. I hope he's able to hold things together. I imagine his narrative will be that he is there to try and hold things together. And I wish him luck in his new appointment.
Would he be a good Prime Minister?
I'm certainly not going to be drawn on successors to Boris Johnson. I believe that Boris needs to go now. He needs to salvage what dignity he can from this process now, but he needs to go nevertheless.
How does he salvage dignity, in your opinion?
He needs to go now without dragging this out. He can't be dragged out of number 10. That'll look awful. You know, we're a sophisticated country. We're not a banana republic. We don't have people clinging on when they've lost all support among their colleagues in the country. In the past, what's happened is people in the position that Boris now finds himself in just stand at the podium outside number 10 and say, look, it's been a great honour to serve, but my time is up, and I hope he does that.
Those are very strong words, aren't they? You must feel very, very passionate about what you're saying.
I don't do things lightly. I certainly don't resign lightly. I feel strongly that the time has come for Boris Johnson to go.
What would you say to other ministers, junior ministers or cabinet ministers in a similar position to you?
I would say to them, it's for them to make up their own minds on this matter. Those of them who have leadership aspirations need to be very careful, however, because backbench colleagues like me will be taking note of how they position themselves. And if they remain in office, they are vicariously liable for the Prime Minister. So I'm afraid they are going to be associated with what he does. And we cannot complain about Keir Starmer and point out to the public, as we really should be doing, that he served for all those years under Jeremy Corbyn, if at the same time there are people who are prepared to stay in office supporting Boris Johnson.
What is the gossip in the tea rooms over the last 24 hours?
Well, I'm certainly not going to divulge conversations in the tea room. It's tea room in confidence, as it were. But I think the mood among my colleagues in general is fevered, and a sense that this is certainly the beginning of the end. This has a sense of inevitability about it. With any other leader in our history, it certainly would be curtains. But Boris is a particular sort of individual, which is why this is dragging out for so long.
So do you expect more resignations?
I would be very surprised if there aren't more resignations.
Today?
Could be today, could be later this week.
OK. And just a quick thought. We had Sir Roger Gale on the programme this morning. He says could limp on until the autumn, the Prime Minister. Your thoughts on that?
Well, there are two scenarios. One, we have a deluge of ministerial resignations and the position simply becomes unsustainable, even for somebody of the tenacity of Boris Johnson, in which case it'll be game over very soon. Or we have to have another go at through the 1922 process, in which case I think Roger is correct. This is going to be an autumn job.